You've heard of Roswell, but what if some of the most baffling UFO encounters didn't happen in the US, but actually in the skies over Czechoslovakia? From military chases to airport surveillance anomalies, these 5 Czech UFO incidents have been buried, denied, or flat out ignored. Until now. Let's dive right into them. On July 12, 1987, one of the most serious UFO incidents ever reported on Czechoslovak territory took place over Vranov Reservoir. This is a very popular summer destination, and so that day, the place was basically swarming with people who were enjoying the sunshine as well as the water. That afternoon, a military Mi-24 attack helicopter was ordered to ascend to 2,000 meters up and pursue this strange hovering silvery object. It was described to be 10 to 50 meters long, and it was meant to be shaped like a cigar. The helicopter crew of 3 scanned the skies through scattered clouds, but when they finally caught the sight of the object, they were absolutely shocked. What they saw did resemble an aircraft, but it had no wings. The description of this object was unlike anything in known aviation to that date. To their further surprise, the crew received a direct order from command. They were to engage and shoot the object down. The mysterious craft had reportedly entered Czechoslovak airspace from Austria and was now violating sovereign airspace, so the helicopter was there to interfere and put a stop to it. The pilots attempted to close in and lock the object into their targeting system, but once all of this was in motion, the UFO demonstrated this extraordinary agility. It started to evade all of the helicopter's attempts to bring it down, and so no matter how hard the crew tried, this UFO could not be brought into a firing range. After about 2 minutes of visual contact, the strange aircraft disappeared into the clouds. But radar stations managed to track its sudden departure. And apparently, it raced across southern of Moravia, passing Brno, then Jaslovské Bohunice, and finally above Bratislava. And then that is where it vanished completely. Now, when the crew returned to its base, they were ordered to delete all records of this mission and pretend like this never happened. They were never to speak of it again, and they were ordered to never mention it to anyone else. But before all of the records were deleted, the pilots did manage to estimate that the object's speed was between 60 kilometers to an astonishing 2,700 kilometers an hour. But this is where things get stranger. You see, this UFO was not only seen that once. In 1992, military radar stations picked up on a very similar object as it crossed the state border near Třisekeri and heading northeast towards the village of Hlost near Miličín. Its movement was deliberate and steady. Not a glitch, not a bird, and certainly not a known aircraft. Reacting very swiftly, the military sent multiple fighter jets and helicopters to try stop this unidentified intruder. But despite the clear weather and solid radar tracking, the pilots never managed to see the object. It remained invisible to the naked eye, even though both radar operators and ground observers confirmed its presence. The object did continue on its path, passing near Chomutov, before abruptly vanishing from all radar screens near the village of Jirkov, almost like it just blinked out of existence. Then, in 2005, a glider pilot flying at an altitude of roughly 1 kilometer also spotted this strange aircraft with no wings. As the glider drew closer, the mysterious object suddenly accelerated with astonishing speed and vanished from sight in an instant, leaving no trail or no sound. But later the same year, similar craft was reported in other parts of the country. To this day, these incidents remain unexplained, and we also have no official records left to go by. So whether this was a foreign surveillance vehicle, a classified aircraft, or something more mysterious, this silvery craft shaped like a cigar left behind more questions than answers. In August of 1993, a man was walking along a quiet country road between 2 villages with his dog. Suddenly, just above the road, he noticed a small, flat object hovering in the air. It almost looked like a colorful toy, innocent at first glance. But then the object began to move. Without making a sound, it started to drift through the air with uncanny smoothness, defying any familiar pattern of flight. Before he could fully process what he was seeing, the object glided away and disappeared. The next day, across various parts of Bohemia and Moravia, a wave of UFO sightings was reported. Witnesses described objects of all shapes and sizes, from cigar-shaped aircrafts to glowing triangles, many of them moving silently or in ways that conventional aircraft could not manage. For Czech UFO researchers, especially those involved with the Project Zare, which is a long-running UFO and paranormal investigation group, this date quickly became known as a kind of an airshow of the unknown. It remains one of the most extraordinary days on record in the Czech Republic for multiple simultaneous sightings of identified aerial phenomena. In the quiet South Bohemian countryside near the town of Miličín, the night of July 12, 1991 was anything but ordinary. Around midnight, several local residents were awakened by this unnatural glow filtering through their windows. Outside, the usually dark rural sky was lit up by the strange, pulsing light coming from above of nearby forest. Now, some witnesses described this glow as blue-white, and others said that it shifted in color like a living aura. And the source? It was this massive silent object hovering low over the treetops. And one group of hikers who were camping in the area later reported seeing what they believed was a gigantic disc-shaped craft, nearly the size of a football field, floating motionless in the sky. They watched in stunned silence, and they also noted that it seemed to produce no sound. But what felt off about this was this low-pressure sensation in the air, like a storm was about to break. Then, without any warning, the object ascended up into the air at an extremely high speed and completely vanished into the night sky. The following morning, several people reported burnt grass and singed treetops in the area beneath where the object had been seen. Others claimed that their watches had stopped working during the sighting, only to resume working hours later. But this wasn't all. Animals that were living on nearby farms had reported behavior erratically that night. Dogs would not stop barking, cows and horses began stampeding, and lots of other animals just went into hiding. And then another set of extremely strange testimonies came in. Two people independently confirmed that they had encountered this 3-meter-tall man with a glowing dog. This case caught the attention of Czech ufologists, including the team of Project Zare, who went on to investigate the area and gather testimonies. Although no conclusive evidence was ever found, the event still remains as one of the most thoroughly documented mass sightings in post-communist Czech Republic. And to this day, the Miličín incident is whispered among enthusiasts as one of the clearest, closest encounters in Czech history, and then they even compare it to the famous Roswell incident in New Mexico, where a high-altitude aircraft was supposed to crash and later be recovered in 1947. On May 5, 1992, the Czechoslovak military detected another strange, slow-moving unknown object. It entered the national airspace near the village of Třisekery, close to the western border. But unlike some of the other sightings, this wasn't just a momentary blip. According to official radar data, the object remained in Czech airspace for over 45 minutes, flying at an altitude of around 2,000 meters and maintaining a steady speed of 200 kilometers an hour. And surprisingly, the military had actually already been tracking it while it had been still over Germany. Despite the extended duration of its presence and the military's awareness of it, interceptors were never able to locate it or identify the object visually. Then, without any warning, the craft vanished from radar near the village of Jirkov, seemingly disappearing into the thin air. Not long after that, several civilians reported seeing a shiny, elongated silver object in the sky, which was consistent with the data from military radar. But once again, no clear explanation followed. The military never publicly identified the aircraft, and no nation claimed it. The incident stands out not just for the object's size or speed, but for its duration and the level of official involvement. For almost an hour, a 4-wing craft was observed drifting around Czechoslovakia, watched, tracked, but never caught. One of the most recent and puzzling UFO sightings in the Czech Republic comes not from a remote village or deep forest, but right from next to Václav Havel Airport in Prague, the country's busiest international hub. The incident, which happened in 2019, was not witnessed by a person, but instead a webcam monitoring the airport's runway. In the footage, a mysterious object can be seen rising vertically from the ground behind the airport's boundary. It accelerates at a remarkable speed, leaving a visible trail in the air, but then suddenly halts mid-flight, hovers briefly, and begins to descend. Strangely enough, moments later, the exact same phenomenon was captured at a completely different and distant location. And again, shortly after that, a third appearance happened. But according to Vladimír Šiška, lead investigator with Project Zare, it's unlikely that this was the same object moving from place to place. He explained that it simply couldn't have traveled that distance in such a short time, but the same event did repeat itself 3 times. And then, never again. Or at least it was never captured again. Investigators reach out to airport staff for explanations. At first, it seemed plausible that some routine operation or training might be responsible for this. After all, a fire drill had taken place at the airport that day, but that had been at 5 a.m. that morning, so hours before this strange occurrence was captured. The team also inquired whether the airport used bird deterrent system or any other experimental devices that could have mimicked the behavior, but officials confirmed that nothing of that sort was in use there. And so to date, there is no clear explanation for this incident. The object's movement defies conventional drone patterns, and no radar or official air traffic record shows anything out of the ordinary. So whatever it was, the Václav Havel Airport anomaly joins the growing list of unexplained aerial phenomena, unfolding not in secret military zones or rural fields, but in full view of modern surveillance equipment at one of Europe's major airports. But what do you think happened in those Czech skies? Are we witnessing experimental tech or something not out of this world? Let me know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. And if this gave you chills, then please subscribe. Until next time.